This is Out Loud and Live with JC Alvarez. Emmy-nominated writer, director, and executive producer SYDNEY FREELAND joins a chorus of Hollywood filmmakers who are championing entertainment and features authentically inclusive and diverse characters reflective of today's audiences. On her latest project for Marvel Studios, Freeland has given voice to Echo, starring Alaqua Cox as the uniquely gifted assassin first introduced in the HAWKEYE series, taking on the mighty crime boss Kingpin. As a trans individual who grew up as part of the Navajo Nation, SYDNEY brought a unique insight into unraveling Maya Lopez's origin story. Here now is SYDNEY Freeland.
Your credentials are amazing and what you have achieved and what you've worked so hard. But if you'll indulge me for a minute, there's just a little bit of a project that you've worked on most recently that is very significant, especially for a lot of fans of Marvel Studios. And that would be your work as director and executive producer on the Marvel show Echo, which is really phenomenal and groundbreaking in so many ways. Could you give us a little bit of a background or your involvement and how you got involved with the project? She's relatively a very modern, contemporary Marvel character into her own spotlight. That must have been remarkable.
Yeah, no, I think I first became aware. Well, first and foremost, the character appeared in the HAWKEYE series, right? And that was her MCU debut, but
Right.
the character of Echo has existed since I think 1998, and she appeared in that first. She had that initial run in Daredevil, and so she's been around for a while now, and there's a little bit of mythology built up around her, around the character, and but I found out actually. I want to say like January 2020. I know it was right before the pandemic hit, and I got an email from Bert and Birdie, who were co-directors on HAWKEYE, and and I remember that email was like, "Hey, do you know any deaf Indigenous actresses?" And I was like, "Nope, good luck." And and so basically, but they were trying to cast for the Echo character, and so that was my first sort of inkling that, oh wow, MCU is looks like they're gonna do this. And then obviously HAWKEYE came along, and the character, I mean, she's a badass in that series.
Yeah.
So then once they announced the Echo series, it was, I had a chance to pitch on it with Kevin, and obviously had the chance to work on the series. And so for me, it was really about trying to lean into those aspects that made the character interesting to myself. She's a villain. It's there was, well, HAWKEYE is a little bit lighter in tone, but there was an opportunity to tell a story that was a little more grounded, a little more gritty, a little more visceral. And I really wanted to lean into that. And Marvel's response was like, yeah, let's do that. Let's lean into it. Let's see how far we can push things.
I love hearing that, it was very important for them to find people of Indigenous background and people that can more authentically approach the character, and material like that is significantly much more important when it's coming from an authentic place, and that reads so well in those five-part stories. It's really bringing in a lot of your own authentic experience into that reality. When you guys were all in the writers' room, because a lot of Echo deals with a lot of cultural traditions. What were those discussions like as far as like pulling from those pieces of wrapping this character in these very significant cultural backgrounds?
Yeah, it was, I have to say that you can have the intention, but you also need to have the resources to be able to support that. And Marvel was incredibly supportive. I think once, when I came on board, the character was already Choctaw, but I think one of the things that was important for myself was that we, very early on, when I came on board, we flew all of our department heads out to Oklahoma, and we met with the Choctaw Nation. It wasn't like those Disney animated movies where it's like we spent 2 weeks in Africa and we studied lions. Like it wasn't that. It was
We,
we watched how
which is a
giraffes
precedent on itself, but
yeah. We watched the dung beetle roll dung up a hill, and we meticulously recreated that. No, it was like we went to Oklahoma, and we did two things. One is that we presented the project to the Choctaw Nation and asked their permission, which is something that for you know, is sadly kind of an afterthought when it comes to like indigenous stories. You know, I think for myself, you know, I grew up in the Southwest U.S., and so, you know, we have close proximity to Monument Valley, and there are a lot of Western shot there. And so I've got family members and grandparents and great grandparents who were, you know, extras and, you know, Indians and whatnot. And, you know, I've heard several firsthand stories of how miserable people are treated. And, you know, you're kind of just treated like cattle. Um, and so, but in terms of telling an authentic story, it's sometimes it can be an afterthought. But for myself, it was important that we engage the Choctaw Nation early on to get their expertise, to get their language, their knowledge base of what their culture and language and traditions are, so that we can incorporate those into the script. You know, and again, thankfully, Marvel was incredibly supportive in this. You know, in this, and that's how we were able to kind of like create this dialogue and create that collaboration to, you know, hopefully tell things in a more authentic manner, because I could not have done that alone.
It's so impactful in the story because, you know, it's Maya Lopez is not a traditional superhero character, and she does have certain challenges. She's deaf, and she's also has a prosthetic leg, and she's this, you know, she's, like you said, she's this badass. She's trained by one of Marvel's most deadliest villains, the Kingpin, to sort of like be a right hand man, a lead assassin. But you guys do a really creative, not only mixing all those elements, but there must have been those challenges as well to relay to the audience, being deaf and also the prosthetic. There are creative methods that you guys chose, and also working with your actor, communicating with your actor because of the fact that she's deaf. What was that like?
Yeah, you know, I think it was you know, we really wanted to like lean into the aspects of, we wanted to lean into what made Maya Lopez different, right?
Yeah.
But then on the same, you know, on the other hand, it's also she's this like high-ranking lieutenant in Kingpin's army who is deaf, who is an amputee, you know, and so I think one of the things within that is that, you know, like you don't get to be of that level without, you know, being particularly, you know, you have to be a badass yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost like, you know, like the expression, like she wants to work twice as hard to be half as bad, you know, like, you know, and so we really wanted to make her a genuine badass, but then also not shy away from those aspects that make her different or unique. And so that kind of dovetailed into like the portrayal of, you know, ASL and how she's deaf. And even like that first episode, like people aren't like, they're not like, you know, saying, how can we help you? How can we, you know, like,
Right.
I took classes before you came, you know, like, no, these goons are there. Like, what the fuck is this? You know, like, I don't know ASL. Right? I'm going to use finger guns and hopefully you get the point and hey, you're going to sink or swim. And that was the fun. That was the fun
Yeah.
part. Right. And then and so she comes at a deficit, but then once she sort of like makes it through, then you know, it's that much more satisfying.
Echo is so satisfying. At the core of it, it's a story about family. It's a story about it's a universal story. I mean, it resonates with everybody, and it's this amazing self-discovery. But you have these two parallels of this character's self-discovery, and also, you know, where she's come from and what she's known and where she's going, and touching on the traditions and how important family is. That must have been significant as far as like, you know, hey, you know, at the core, this is about family. Pulling that family together must have been very, very interesting for the creative team.
Yeah, no, I mean that was family was at the heart of everything we were trying to do thematically, right? Like it's like, and if you look at the over the course of the series, it's you know, it's an exploration of the definition of family, right? So at the beginning of the series, like Maya has this, you know, when we come into the series, at that point in Maya's life, she's more Oklahoma or she's more New York than she is Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
So she's got that sort of like kingpin underground criminal family mindset. It's very conditional. It's very kind of, you know, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, but it's also conditional, like I said. And she knows she has to work her ass off, or she can be discarded, thrown by the wayside, or even killed, you know. she thrives in that environment and something she's very comfortable with. And then we go to Oklahoma and we're going to introduce her to something, to a more sort of unconditional definition of family. And then, you get to inject the cultural elements into that as well too. And then, it's great because we get to then sort of challenge her preconceived notions of what family is and challenge her as an individual. And hopefully she can grow and change over the course of the series. And, obviously she's different by the end than she is at the beginning.
I have a Maya in my life. I have a cousin that's very much that I can, pour all of those things into her. Not the assassin part, but I mean, it's like, all of that,
that
all
you know
of that.
of, that you know of. Yeah,
Yeah. And I certainly have a troll in my life. It's like everyone has that matriarch of the family that knows everything, and that's what struck me and made the show resonate so much with me, that it is so inclusive in that aspect, that family is a touchstone. It's something that we can all relate to, and something that's really reflective and important with a lot of the work that you're involved in, because aside from working with Marvel Studios on Echo, a lot of things you tend to work with have that reflection of inclusivity in them. Is that something that attracts you to a project initially? Is that something that you look for in a project, something that represents all myriad of designs?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's who I am. I'm Native American. I'm transgender, and so I think the characters that I'm attracted to the most are the characters that are on the periphery, on the sort of the margins. I think it's interesting because like I come from the two very very distinct communities that have been misrepresented and misportrayed in media, and usually you're portrayed as exotic or different or other. But like for me, I'm like, I'm kind of a boring person, and but when you have a chance to sort of inhabit that character, it's like, okay, what's the humanity behind that character?
Yeah.
What is that internal life? And I mean, and I think that's how you make a character accessible to an audience not from the community. Is humanity is the one thing that sort of we all have in common. And if you can highlight that and make that character relatable to someone else, it's like you said, it's like,
Right.
I think you said you're Latino, and brown people families around the world have, like everyone's got a grandma, everyone's got, and so it's really about, for myself, it's the kind of the outcast characters, the marginalized characters, the ones I particularly gravitate towards, because that's just who I am. That's where I come from.
Do you think the industry's perception of marginalized characters has changed a lot? Because I mean, it's like, we've certainly become a lot more, or the eyeglass has been put more on our communities, like on minorities, LGBTQ communities. There really is a spotlight of getting those stories out. Do you think that the industry is blossoming and changing its perception about telling our stories and telling them more authentically? There's interest in telling those stories.
Yeah, yes, with a caveat. Yes, with a caveat, right? Like, so I think one of the positive consequences that you saw, like before the strike last year, is that like
Right.
where peak TV and the 600 TV shows that were being made is people were looking for more and more unique, diverse stories and voices, and that's how you get something like a Pose, like for FX, and then I'm just using those two examples, and there's many, like Insecure, and all these other great shows with marginalized voices. And so I think authenticity is much needed right now, and hopefully that we can kind of keep that some momentum coming, post strike, and
Yes.
yeah. But
Yeah,
I think what sets it apart is, like, for myself, there's 10 years of nothing. My first feature on paper was a contemporary ensemble Native American piece, right? And the response from investors was, there isn't a market, there isn't a market, there isn't a market, and I just finished directing a $30 million Netflix movie that is a contemporary Native American ensemble piece, and that's my first feature was 150,000. And so I think the difference as well too is financial, like there is people are putting resources into these stories, which is also important.
Yeah, and absolutely, that's a testament to your drive and your dedication. And most importantly, putting those stories out there. But if you had to encapsulate, I mean, the tremendous career that you've had, when you have people like yourself that are, in the positions that you are, it changes the way other people look at themselves, other indigenous people, other trans individuals, people in the LGBT community, creatives who find themselves marginalized. What would you say to them to keep them, on track?
I mean, I think just keep, keep plugging away, keep plugging away. Like
Yeah.
if you have that script, you got that story, you got that idea. Like, I think one of the best pieces of advice I got is like nobody's going to care about your story more than you.
Yeah.
So if you don't care about it, then and you're expecting someone else to come in and kind of like bolster that. And yes, those people will need to come in at certain points, but at the end of the day, if you don't care about it, look at what reason do other people do as well too.
Yeah. Would you want to return to the world of Echo?
Oh hell yeah. Do it in a heartbeat. I would, and I would like I want to pick up right where we left off, because I want to see what that conversation is like at that barbecue. Like I want to see like. So, hold on, guys. Let's just talk about what happened last night. Grandma got powers. Yeah, Abuela got powers, and
compare notes here.
Yeah. Bonnie got powers, and then by the way, Henry, you killed somebody. May or may not kill somebody, but yeah, like literally, like I'd want to pick up exactly where we left off and just start with that conversation. What is that conversation like at the barbecue?
Yeah, and certainly with a character that has so much rich depth and all, it's perfect time for Echo to make her way back into the MCU and really it just seems as if this is a great and a creative place for telling these stories and getting all kinds of stories out there. So I'm really grateful that these stories are being told and that individuals like yourselves are really just stepping up and making them real, and not only that, but coming from a loving place of like, I love this genre, I am a comic book fan, I know this stuff, and it speaks to all of us.
No, thank you.
Sydney, thank you so much for spending some time with me, and I can't wait for Echo season 2. I'm gonna light my candle, my Santa Barbara candle.
All right, nice.
This has been Outline and Live with JC Alvarez. My thanks to the marvelous SYDNEY FREELAND for sharing her story. Marvel Studios puts the Marvel spotlight on Echo, with all 5 episodes available to watch now on Disney+. For more entertainment and pop culture news, check out thefansite.com. Thanks for joining me, and always stay tuned.